So, welcome everyone. You are listening to What's Up, Sonia Blade, and I'm your host, Sonia Blade. Today's guest is my homegirl, Queen Nik. So, thanks for joining me.
No problem.
I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to throw out a topic of the day, and I wanted to talk a little bit about fear, something that we've all gone through at some point. Everybody's
Mm,
gone through or going through in their life.
yeah. I mean, fear can do one of, I'm gonna say three things. Fear will hinder you.
Yep.
Fear can, force you to face your fear. Or it may, keep you frozen in place because fear activates our nervous system, right?
Exactly.
We go in fight, flight, or freeze. So depending on how you deal with fear will kind of determine how you deal in situations that involve fear. Anything like, of course, fear is a kind of a natural response to danger. Your body's response to danger. It's your nervous system activating saying, hey,
Yeah.
something ain't right. And I think a lot of us oftentimes allow fear to drive us to certain things rather than confronting those things head on. The times, like even myself, like I, there was one point in time when it came to relationships where I was so worried that my next partner was going to cheat on me
Yeah.
because that was something that was a reoccurring thing. And then I realized that's not my problem. Actually, that's like if I am me and I do me and I am myself, and he chooses to step out of a relationship, then that's not on me. That's on him.
Yeah. So do you think fear is something that I guess we kind of build these ideas in our heads? Just comes from like you
I
said.
think sometimes, yeah, sometimes yes, it is. It is like you like there are conspiracy theories. Like, and I heard something the other day about it about this particularly. It wasn't he didn't say fear, it was more anxiety, but like anxiety can stem from fear. So it's kind of very similar. It was an animation of Skeletor, and he's like, remember, anxiety is just conspiracy theories made up about yourself. Until we meet again. It's like it was perfect. And I was like, you know what? He's right. Like these are conspiracy theories you made up about yourself.
Yeah. You could say that we're like paranoid human beings that we're just constantly in our heads making up these crazy theories in our minds.
Right. No, let's not discount those who have a really good intuition and spot on as far as like when it comes to certain things though. Because if there's patterns there, it might not necessarily be just fair. You might actually like it might actually be something real. However, you have to analyze a situation and come out of your head and observe and look at what all the sum of all the parts are. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes it is all in your head. Sometimes you're not tripping. You see what you're saying.
Yep. I, I like what you said about, fear can make you basically stagnant. Like if you live in fear, you just stay in one place. You can't move forward. You might have a big dream or there might be some place you want to go, but like you're living in your fear. And so
Yeah, a
it's,
lot of people are afraid of their own success.
yeah,
Like they're afraid to move forward or take the next step or take that leap of faith because they don't have enough faith in themselves, let alone in their capabilities or ability. Some people are afraid to fail, but a lot of people are afraid to succeed.
exactly.
Can you imagine if we were babies learning how to walk and we fell down once and it was just like, oh, maybe this walking shit ain't for me.
But it's
You know how ridiculous that would be?
I think it's interesting you say that, right? Because when we're kids and you watch, like, look at a little kid, any child, right? They're fearless. They're just running around.
Yeah. Scrape the knee,
jumping off stage.
they will get up like nothing happened, especially if they're
like 5 seconds and that's it.
Sometimes they fall and they don't cry at all. Now, they may,
exactly.
and they'll be fine. They'll get right up and start running again. It's just like, bro, are you okay?
They laugh.
Wait a minute.
Again.
You're like, right. And it's just like, bro, that's crazy. I mean, that happened to me when I was a kid. My siblings. So we used to do a lot of crazy, wild stuff as children, right? And I do mean crazy, wild stuff. So there was a lot of like dangerous games we used to play.
Yeah.
Like we used to jump out of our bathroom window when we lived on the bottom floor of this duplex. We jumped out the bathroom window and then ran around the house, the outside of the house, ran down the stairs into the basement, up the stairs into our room, and went through the bathroom and jumped out the window again. We used to do that a lot. But then there was this other thing we did, which was, you know how like, you have siblings, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So did y'all ever like swing on the door? Was y'all ever one of those kids that like swung on the door?
I don't know about swinging on the door. We did some crazy stuff.
Yeah. So we used to swing on the door, and I think like once I was swinging on the door, and mind you, I'm 2 older siblings, so like they're 6 and 8 years older than me. So I'm swinging on the door, having the time of my life, and like I guess my brother pushes it too quickly, or I just wasn't like gripped enough on it or whatever. But like I fell and hit my head like hard, and like I was passed out for like a good minute. Like they were scared. So mind you, like my parents were like out and about on the weekend. Who knows what the hell these mofos was doing, because sometimes they went shopping, sometimes they were just out all day, but they were out darn near every weekend, during the day and stuff. So, you know, they were scared that I wouldn't wake up. But like they checking my posts constantly to make sure I was still alive. It was pretty wild. But I mean, hey, that fear right there, they realized, oh no, we gotta be careful, you know?
Yeah.
We can't just be doing stuff like that, you know? But, you know, we as kids don't even realize how dangerous stuff is until we get older or something actually happens. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of times too, the parents kind of slowly start putting those little fears, right? They'll say, don't do this. Don't jump off the stairs or you're going to hurt yourself, you know, and then you get spanked or whatever. So you're kind of conditioned to start thinking, oh, if I fall, then I'm going to get in trouble. Or if I start jumping off these stairs, I'm going to get in trouble for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what happens for us is that, especially as Black children, we aren't allowed to make mistakes because at least the way I was raised, my mom was like, no, because like I gotta nip this in the bud now, because if something happens in the outside world where people who don't love you are dealing with you, that mistake could cost you your life.
Exactly.
And I get that fear, but at the same token, I'm like, nah, there's got to be a better way than to instill fear, because now as adults, we are afraid to make mistakes. We are afraid to fail.
Exactly.
And that is a problem, because then that fear keeps you from actually taking those leaps, taking those risks. And here's the thing. I think a lot of our parents never taught us calculated risk.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, they never taught us how to make calculated risk.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It was always just don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
I think a lot of parents tend to look at their children, particularly Black parents, tend to look at their children as mini adults.
Yeah.
And they try, like, they have the expectation of this child to pretty much move like a mini adult. And you have to remember that these are kids.
Yeah.
I remember in a group I was in, a certain somebody said, and I ain't gonna name no name, but they felt as though you have to treat your children like many adults. And it's like, no, children are children for a reason.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? They'll have enough of their life, of their lifetime, where they have to be adult. Why rush that? What's the reason in that? Like, allow them to have a childhood. I know I had something of a childhood, but once I turned 13, life changed. But I did have a childhood that I could be a kid. And that's more than I could say for a lot of my peers and a lot of my friends. My best friend, she was working like in the summer times and stuff like that. Because it was just her mom, and her grandmother. But me, I didn't have to work. I was just, playing the PlayStation, doing like regular kid stuff, although I couldn't go nowhere either. you know. But I think I get the whole fear of always wanting to protect your child, and the fear of, something dangerous could happen to them. Oh my God, I'm sorry. A freaking gecko ran past my face and they're, oh my God.
It is a scary world. It is definitely a scary world, but at the same time, I think that, you got to make mistakes. And like you mentioned failures, and I think that people look at failure as a bad thing, but it's not necessarily bad. Like, it's a lesson.
It shows you what doesn't work.
Learned.
Like that's the one thing it does do.
Yeah.
It shows you what's not working. You know what I mean? You learn exactly 100% that formula does not work.
Exactly.
That's what you learn.
Exactly. And if you don't try,
you'll never know. In the words of my cousin, Michael Jordan, you will miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yep. That's true. That is absolutely true.
And that's guaranteed every time. And a lot of us are afraid to shoot our shot because either we don't believe we're qualified, we don't believe in our own capabilities, or the way we look at ourselves is less than what our true actual power is.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, like, especially for Black women, we've been taught to fear our own greatness in some ways, particularly for women. I don't know. I used to hear from usually aunties, not really from my own mom, but aunties about like, oh, you don't want to be too smart because then you're going to make, you don't want to. Basically, they were suggesting I make myself small.
Yeah.
Out of fear that I would not be dateable or eligible for, a good man or whatever. My mom, on the other hand, she wasn't having that. And like, even though she had her own fears that she instilled in me as far as her being an overprotective mom, to which I totally get, she never really put a whole lot of fear on us in terms of like who we were. It was more about physical safety.
Mm-hmm. And for me, growing up, I grew up in a Caribbean household, so I think there's a lot of fears, right? And a lot of things that you do and you don't do. Being an artist.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's a don't do.
Oh no. So it's like out on your own and trying to hustle and do your thing. They'll put that fear in you. And I get it because that's just how they grew up. Like I don't blame my parents. That's just what they know. That's their understanding. They come from that time where you get a job, you get a government job, or you work in a factory, or you work as a nurse. My dad was an electrician and my mom was a nurse. And you keep doing jobs for 20 some years, you get the watch, you retire. and live happily ever after, you know?
I mean, that's not really how that ends up. Really, ideally, that's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's the idea. But then, like I look back on their lives and I think, did they have a dream? Did they have anything that they aspired to, that they wanted to do?
Yeah, I wondered the same thing about my mom. Like, I asked her, I was like, because I remember she told me she could have went to Harvard University for $5,000 in tuition. $5,000 US dollars, bro. It's about maybe 7,000 Canadian, if that. Um, so, the fuck? And I was like, what? You telling me you didn't go? She was like, yeah, at that time, women going to college wasn't exactly like encouraged around me. And I was like, damn, that sucks. Cause I mean, I wonder what her big dreams were at 18. Like I like she has this one picture of her from high school, her senior portrait.
Mm.
And you could tell she just looked so happy. She looked so full of light and kind of ready to take on the world. She's like there's a certain light in her eyes in that photo that you don't see in present day.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like, what did you give up? Like, because when she had kids, it's almost like she kind of like just gave up on her dream.
Yeah.
Which super sucks because she was just like, oh, well, I had to raise y'all. And it's just like, girl, bro, you were supposed to have your own life too, And I think back in the days, though, being a mom and chasing your dreams wasn't exactly, was more so frowned upon back then.
Yeah.
It's like, why ain't you with your kids kind of thing? Like the ultimate determinant of you being a good mom is you being with your children. Which is totally unfair. Because then, she's stuck having to, raise up, but has nothing for herself. And so now that we're all grown, because even the baby's what, 24? So all of us are grown now, and I think she's definitely been dealing with the empty nester syndrome of not really knowing what to do with herself. Now that she's, that we're all grown and we kind of don't need them in the same way we used to. And so now it's like she's been trying to figure out what she wanted to do. Like she was thinking about, volunteering in the hospitals and stuff like that. But then she was like, I don't know if I want to do that because, you get attached to people, especially if they're in hospice or something like that. And then next thing you know, they're gone. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I'm like, bro, do what you want to do, whatever it is that makes you happy. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah. Like, how would you change that for yourself when you look at like your mom? Now that you're living your life, how would you change that?
For me, first thing is waiting to procreate. Like, I'm 30 years old now, but waiting to procreate is probably the smartest thing I could ever do, because that is one of the things that she always told me, which was don't rush to have kids.
Exactly.
Like, I love all of y'all and y'all are all blessed. However, I think I maybe should have waited and experienced life a little more, because she's never been outside this country. Like, she's never been outside our home country. So me having a passport, being able to I've gone to different countries and whatnot. I got a couple stamps in there and whatnot. I know it's different, and I already have a totally different worldview than she does in some way. I think when you stay in those places where you grew up and things like that, and you never explore, you kind of have a very limited view of the world, and you don't allow yourself to experience things different. I give you my story about fear. In my early 20s, I went to college, and I was looking at colleges and whatnot, but I didn't want to go too far from home, because being that far from home, being that far from family, that far from everyone, I was like, that fear was like, oh, yeah, I was like, I don't know. And then, like, nearly 10 years later, or more like 7 or 8 years later, I took that leap of faith. As nervous and nerve wracking as it was, I moved out of my hometown. I moved out of my hometown, and that's when I met y'all.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was the best thing I ever did. A lot of people, like some people thought, like, oh, what are you running from? I don't have to run. I'm not running from anything. I was going to experience something different. I just wanted to be in a different space that wasn't the place my birthplace. Experience different people, try new things. And I'm not gonna lie, it was the weather mostly because I ain't gotta worry about snow down here. Like, listen, nobody likes snow for real. Like, I don't know how you do it up there. I don't. I don't know how you do it up there. You got there cold.
I don't even know how I do it. I'm tired of it and I'm ready to leave it. Trust me. I'm ready. I think I had my last share of winter. This last
Yeah, man.
last winter. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Something's changing.
Yeah, but I took the leap of faith in moving down here. I had only $1,000 to buy when I came down. And literally the money I had was just enough to get me down, to get me and all of my teams down there. And, I got a job within the time frame, within the same time frame, got hired and everything, and started working. I was there for months. I was actually forever. And, that was cool. Like, it was great, especially for the first 6 months. But I guess the stir crazy didn't set in until like month 6, where it was like, all right, man, I sleep, eat, and work in the same area. That was killing my creativity.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, I just like after every night, because I would work from 11 o'clock until 8 at night. And then and like sometimes that time would kind of drag over to about 9 at the latest. I've been the latest I had ever been on a call was like 10. So like by the time I get off work and try to be compressed and all of that, it's midnight. I only got another 2 hours left before I gotta go to bed. So I can get up early enough to like, get ready for the next day and all of that.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot. It just the motivation to be creative and to create content or whatever just wasn't really waiting for me. It's just like sitting at that same day was just a lot. So I realized I needed to separate my spaces, and I tell you one thing, overcoming that fear of failure or fear of being trash at something is something that I've learned over the last couple of years. It's like I took up sewing, and learned how to sew. So like I started out making like the simple Queen Nik dress. Had a sewing machine and all of that. Did YouTube University to figure out how to use it and all of that. Still not exactly the greatest sewer in the world. I also do not advertise, me knowing how to sew to anyone because
Something you're doing for yourself.
it's still a hobby. Yeah, it's still a hobby and it is something that I'm doing for myself. But I've got a lot better. Like I've actually made the pieces that I can actually wear outside. So that's been pretty cool. And I've also been really mostly like the reason why I decided to develop the skill in the first place was to create more cosplay outfits.
Yeah.
Or going to cons and dressing up and having a great time. Is that have you ever been to Comic-Con?
No.
And I probably would enjoy it. But yeah, the energy is different there. And I love that. I really do. But if I allow fear to keep me stagnant or I allow fear to run me away, I would have never experienced any of that,
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've let fear consume most of my life, and it's like it wasn't until I got sick, it wasn't until I got mobility or lost my mobility where I was like, yo, like, I let most of my life just go like that because you don't realize how much things can change too. You think that, things are always going to be great, but that's just life. Sometimes life throws you a curveball, right? So like for me, it's just so important to just live. I was saying just earlier to you before we started this that live every day like it's your last. Live it to your fullest. I've lived in Toronto my whole entire life. And anybody who knows me well, I've always said, okay, I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to leave. But there was always that the fear again of going and leaving and stepping outside my comfort zone. And to be honest with you, I'm ready. This is partly why I'm doing this podcast. This is completely out of my comfort zone. And this is another
Yeah.
fear I've conquered. I'm like, no, I'm not letting anything
Look at you. Look
hold
at
me back.
you conquering it. Okay.
You know?
No,
So,
go ahead.
like I said, if you don't try, you're never gonna know. And like, what's the absolute
Exactly.
worst thing that could happen?
It doesn't work. Okay.
It
I
doesn't.
mean, you've had greater upsets than that in your
Exactly.
life, I'm sure.
Exactly. And I feel like, when I look back on my life, it's destined to meet all these. I've met all these people who come around and I've become really close friends with who lived in country. Like one of my closest friend lives in Paris. I have two friends actually from France, from Paris, who came all the way to Canada only because they were just curious to know what it was like to live in North America. And then they liked it and lived here for like, 5 years. One person, a good friend of mine got her, or close to getting her citizenship. She might got her citizenship now. She's living here.
Mm.
I totally came from, and I remember when I met her actually, it was so funny because she designs clothes.
Okay.
And we had a mutual friend, and I guess she had a photographer. They were doing a shoot, but that photographer backed out. So my friend was like, Sonia, I know you're doing this photography thing. We're doing this little fashion thing. Would you be down? And I was like, sure, practice, sure, right? Like early stages
Right.
of photography. And when I met her, it was like she knew a little bit of English.
Mhm.
I know maybe like so little French, enough French to maybe get through and figure out what you're trying to say to me. So,
Okay. So
you
you got like the gist.
communication was just like, you know what I mean?
A little rocky. A little
Yeah,
rocky at the beginning.
rocky,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we're such close friends, and we still talk and we still exchange ideas, and she teaches. I think that's what she does. She teaches French here, and then still design clothes and stuff. But like
Right.
the fact is, it's like I meet these people who she left her family, everything to just come to somewhere where she didn't even really know the language to live here.
That's some true like things of the fears because that is one thing that I'm so nervous about. Like, especially in the coming like couple years or so, I'm trying to get up out of the USA. The USA is crumbling slowly but surely.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Especially with today's political climate. See, I stay off of social media for the most part because I just, the internet is not a nice place anymore. It used to be, but it ain't what it used to be anymore. And so because of that, I was like, I felt like I was probably one of the last people to find out about what was going on as far as politically within the US, and finding out that Biden dropped out the race and decided to, throw Camilla up there. But I'm gonna steer away from politics as far as within this conversation because we can talk about that all day. But I think fear has definitely been a huge thing as far as like trying to um trying to get Americans to vote. And with this whole Project 2025 thing going on, or at least that's what the GOP is planning to do. They try to turn this place into the Handmaid's Tale.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen that show,
Oh yeah.
but baby,
I love that show, right? I think it's a great show.
Mhm.
But every time I watch it, I have like nightmares. I have nightmares.
Yeah, like I had to stop after season, like season 2, episode 2. I remember exactly what episode and season I was on when I stopped watching because it was just getting a little too close to it was touching down a little too close for me.
I think there's something about
And
those type of shows that's like even that movie that came on Netflix that Obama did. What's it called?
leave the world behind.
Oh, let me tell you. So we had a power outage in Toronto because we had like a huge rainstorms. Apparently, it was like a month of rain that came down in like 2 hours. So everything flooded. Power went out for we had no power for like 9 hours. Now I knew on a storm, right? But for some reason, I don't know why, I started to kind of panic near the end of it. So the way our internet's connected, or we have like 5G, so it connects to the phone, use power. The landline is done. But I'm like, okay, that's fine. I got my cell phone. My cell phone was working for most of the day, but then by the end of the night, I'm like, oh, I can't get on the internet. I can't get on the network. Like, what's going on? I can't dial anybody. So I have no way of communicating. And then I don't know why. I just kind of went into like, oh, what if this is.
So wait, the landlines aren't connected to the ground? Like aren't grounded?
Yeah, no, yeah. But like, it's the weirdest thing, and I don't know why.
Oh hell no! Like oh hell no! That's dangerous.
So I'm like, okay, something happens. I'm taking care of, senior lady here. I got no way to call anybody because my cell phone can't dial out for whatever reason. The landline's not working. I was just like,
Yeah, I mean, hey, those were the beginning stages of that movie. So I mean, I since watching that movie, I can't look at Tesla's the same.
I'm
Like,
kind of a conspiracy theory type of person, so it just made me think, okay, I'm gonna start buying cans of food in little increments and just start storing them because, yeah, laugh at me, but people, if something happens, you're all gonna be coming to my house like, Sonya, can we have a can of
yo, listen, you got bug out bag, okay? We have these things called bug out bags, and what's in them is basically supplies for if the world goes to shit and like it's dangerous out here, or The Walking Dead for that matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. We you never know like which direction this is gonna go in. So upon any kind of emergency, what we have in these bug out bags are like straw. It's a straw that's basically a filter, so you can drink from any stream, like any body of water, doesn't matter, and it'll filter out all the impurities, all the toxins and chemicals or anything like that. And so you can drink from anywhere, pretty much. We have what MRE, MREs. I would actually even go as far as to get MREs. You only have to replace those once every few years or so.
Yeah.
Make sure the cans, like the dates on your cans are, far enough along and whatnot. Because canned goods don't even last as long as they used to anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got to be careful with that. Freeze dry stuff if you can. Like, if you have an air fryer, you can dehydrate stuff and then vacuum seal it. That should be like, that'll be good for a few years and whatnot. Like, and all you need to do is just add water to it. Like, if you freeze dry anything, and freeze drying is just your dehydrating it, and that's it. That's kind of how the astronaut do it when they're in space.
Okay.
So like when they're on the ISS and stuff like that, they can't exactly like. Can you imagine them trying to cook spaghetti or something crazy? Like like I could just see the pasta sauce. Like, like when you heat up pasta sauce and whatnot, and the bubbles start coming up. Like you imagine like being in 0G and the bubbles, instead of just popping like they normally would just bubble up and just fly out of the pot. Like that would be so interesting. I'm surprised they still haven't figured out artificial gravity and things yet. Like that to me is a little odd. All this technology, y'all still haven't mastered artificial gravity yet. It was small. Like, but I mean, like when you sleep up there, you got to be tied down. I wish, like, if there was not, like, if white supremacists didn't have such a great fear of Black people, we could have probably been intergalactic by now. As far as like traveling the galaxy, like, yo, we could have been so much further as a species, like, than we are if fear didn't drive certain things.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, and the fear of, Black people in positions of power, the fear of, Black people taking over the world. And it's just like, well, I mean, the last time Black people took over the world, we took the Europeans out of the Dark Ages.
yeah.
It's like, so I'm just saying, like, you might as well go ahead and just let it happen. Because at the very least, we'll be advancing technology and just advancing like all kinds of different things. And honestly, like, I just wish like we were a lot further along as a human race.
Yeah.
Truly, because man, this whole working for money thing, this whole, selling your time for money, this ain't it.
Yeah. No.
This ain't it, and we've known that for quite some time.
Obviously, you work for because we got to survive, but now it's like everybody's competing to have the bigger house. You build a house on the block, and then somebody buys a plot of land beside you and build a bigger house than you, or a nicer car than you. And really, what does it all mean? Because when you die, does that go with you? No.
Nope. It doesn't. If we only had to work for the things that we wanted versus the things that we need to actually survive, things would be a lot different. Like, just recently in the U.S., the Supreme Court ruled it's illegal to be homeless.
Wow.
Yep. So now you have the criminalization of homeless people who kind of are down on their luck. You got a lot of people who are living check to check and who are just one paycheck away from homelessness.
Yeah.
This is not gonna go well. It's gonna get bad. It's gonna get real bad.
That's where I think there's always gonna be fear, because as much as you want to try to create some sort of like utopian society, someone's always gonna have to have control. You know what I mean? Someone's always gonna have to have the power to control all that. So,
and it's just like, why? Like, the Native Americans, like my people, because like I am part Native American, on my dad's side, like we was chilling, like we was living off the land, we was taking care of the animals, we was doing what God intended. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
We was doing what God intended, which was living off the land, taking care of the animals, taking care of the earth, and having babies. Like that was God's plan, for real. And we spat on that apparently, and that just wasn't good enough anymore.
Nope.
For whatever reason.
So winding down here, if you had to go back and change anything, what would you change?
As far as what?
And
like, in terms of my own personal life?
You personally, if you had to go back and change your life in terms of like, I guess, stepping beyond your fears, what would you go back and change?
I would have probably moved a lot sooner.
Yeah.
I would have more than likely kind of encouraged myself, like, especially in high school, to just go out. I would probably have told myself or recommended to myself to like study abroad, as far as like looking at schools abroad rather than just going to like a regular US school here.
Yeah.
And just also, like, if I could go back to childhood, I would have bugged my parents to invest in Apple and Vita and a couple of other companies, because at least then we'd have been set up for success now. My mama would have had a retirement fund and everything. You're right. I ain't just selfish now. I would have I would have definitely tried to like, benefit the entirety of the family and whatnot. So like to put everybody in a better position later on down the line, for sure.
For the youngsters, what kind of advice would you give them?
Never let fear stop. Let it let it create, risks, but take those calculated risks. You got to calculate your risk. You can't just look at it as a risk and say no to it. You have to look at both sides of it. Okay, so what happens if this goes well? What happens if this goes bad? All right, cool. If the bad ain't really that bad, try it.
Yeah.
Give it a shot. Like, the only thing you'll find out is what doesn't work. Be a scientist when it comes to taking risks and things like that. What do scientists do? Hypothesize, research, experiment, repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Treat it like that. You can't go wrong.
That's true. That's a good formula for life. Hypothesize, experiment, or research, experiment, repeat. Keep it going no matter what. And no matter how old you are, you could be young, like, or old. Just get out there.
You're just too old to keep doing what's not working.
Yeah. Never too old to try. You could be
but you are too old to be doing what's not working.
Exactly. That part right there. Say it to the people in the back. And so thanks for joining me on my show today. That was
thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure speaking with you.
Of course.
Where can people find you online? You have social media going on, or?
Oh yeah. So I usually stream on YouTube. And I also you can find me on IG. Most of my stuff is Queennik.art. On YouTube, you just take the dot out. So it's Queennik.art, all one word. You can find me pretty much everywhere. You either take the dot out or you don't. IG and Facebook the same. Queennik.art. So yeah.
You could check below. I'll have all that information there. And also don't forget to like, share
if you can.
All that good stuff.
Indeed.
All right, till next time, guys. This is Sonya Blade. You're listening to What's Up, Sonya Blade. I will catch you next time. Peace out.